Joining me now in his usual Monday spot is the host of Green Light Pod, two-time Super Bowl champ Chris Long, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Christopher? You good?
I've been better, Rich. Been better.
Okay. All right. Anything I can help with, Chris? Anything I can help with?
Can you play linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles?
No, that's not my lane, sir. That's not my lane.
Yeah, no.
What'd you make of the Niners' destruction of Philadelphia on Sunday?
I mean, hey, I thought it was a bad spot for the Eagles, but I didn't think it was going to be like that. Like this is the best team in football right now. I think for most of the year, when they're healthy, they've had the highest heights. You talk about like beating up on Dallas and now Philly. Brock Purdy, 500 yards in those two games, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think it's a bad matchup for anybody, but when you look across the conference at Philly and a possible rematch, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, Shaq Leonard's not going to make the difference. Getting Cunningham back is not going to be the difference. Like, it's not going to make up 23 points. That delta concerns me. And when you look at the tape, we said coming in this game, they had to win the middle of the field. They didn't do that. They had to tackle these guys over 11 yards after the catch. Didn't do that. The one thing they did that surprised me is they came out quick. They jumped on these guys, but they kicked field goals. And yeah, maybe that game's different if you jump out to a 14-0 lead. And I think when you had it 23-16 or whatever it was, or 21-13 coming out of that first drive in the second half, you score a touchdown and the defense has to stand up. They just can't. 5 plays, 70 yards. It's like, if you can't keep these guys off the field and if you can't contend with what they do in the middle of the field, it's just going to be a long day whenever you play them. Now, the next time you could play them and you could be perfect and you could beat them, but you have to be perfect to beat these guys because they're that good when they're healthy.
So then I guess the question for you is, who's good enough to beat the 49ers right now? Because in the NFC, the 49ers have eviscerated the two teams that you would feel that have the opportunity to beat them out for the 1 seed, including the Eagles, who are still 1 game in front of them. But all they got to do is have the same record as the Cowboys and the Eagles, with some winnable games for them, with the exception of, I guess, the Ravens coming to their house on Christmas night. What do you got for me on that front, Chris?
Well, there's a couple teams in the AFC, and I don't love if Kansas City got there. I don't love the matchup, anyways. But if they get their backers back, I think that's a big deal, right? Like, without Nick Bolton, it's been tough sledding. You saw that last night, like going down another backer in Tranquil. Just they're too thin there, and then you lose Cook late in the game. That's another big issue. So I don't know how I feel about that matchup if they're not at full strength. Maybe Baltimore, but the playoffs. We play these games for a reason, and Brock could have a game where he turns the ball over 2 times. I'm not saying they're unbeatable. But in a big situation, you got the coach, you have the personnel, and you have a quarterback who now has showed up in the biggest spots. And I gotta hand it to these guys. They do look like, when they're healthy, the best team in football.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy did come up with a drive at the end of a game to win a game in Cleveland, but his kicker, Jake Moody, missed the field goal. But that's basically the only thing that I think we haven't seen from Purdy yet, right? Is a W in that situation.
Yeah, sure. And as you put it, he drove them down the field in a situation where they weren't playing their best ball, and they could have survived that game. But the Minnesota game, I really do think that was an aberration. It was a perfect storm with some injuries and that whole thing. For me, if they get home field, it's hard to imagine somebody playing well enough to beat them there. But if there's any team that can do it, it's Philly on their best day in the NFC. But that was far from their best day. It just, we talked about the personnel issues. They're not getting fixed completely. And I don't know, like when we won the Super Bowl in 2017, we had Nigel Bradham, we had Hicks, who's a really good player. We had Kendricks, we had guys that could really play there. And Howie Roseman, as good as he's been, this has been the one thing they've been willing to roll the dice on year after year, is that linebacking core.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.